very proud of what Lewis has become. Faculty and staff and administrators who really are very competent, dedicated, scholarly. The university community is all about people.
Welcome to Lewis Spotlight. My name is Keith Killacky, and I like to share some of my life's lessons with you. My early childhood began on the south side of Chicago. I'm a South Side original, so to speak. I was born at Lewis Memorial Maternity Hospital. It was the war years in World War II that we moved from 66th and Stewart to 71st and Western over in Market Park on the south side of Chicago and on to Oak Lawn, Illinois. I attended grammar school in the city at St. Adrian's and St. Albert the Great out in Oak Lawn. And somehow I connected with the local church, St. Albert's, and I was sent to a minor seminary in Holland, Michigan for 4 years. I spent those summers in working at the parish during my high school time, and then I entered back in 1961 Loyola University, Chicago, graduating in 1965, there to celebrate the NCAA basketball championship back in 1963. That was a historic moment for us at Loyola. After Loyola, I got married. 1965, we just celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary. And my wife, Kathleen Bridget, is a North Sider, so we decided that we could coexist together for the last 50 years. I then moved out to South Bend, Indiana area, taught high school for 3 years in the Mishawaka school systems. I attended Indiana University, got my master's degree, and I then decided that I had to pick another career outside of teaching, and I decided that the career I picked, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, I entered in 1969, and I stayed with them for about 29 years. The greatest life lesson from my childhood is perhaps reflected in the way my father kind of taught me, brought me up. My father had been a Chicago police officer for 10 years. He got disabled, retired from the force after only 10 years. My father had been a great advocate of college education. I would be the first in my family to graduate from college, even though he just attended college at Campion High School and Campion College in Wisconsin. It was a Jesuit institution, so he directed me to a Jesuit school because he thought Notre Dame was not the place to go. Loyola University was the place to go. I think that was the greatest life lesson to carry on with me, is to make sure that our 5 children somehow connect and receive a college education also. So through my father, I would think that he was the inspiration, he was the role model, he was the mentor in our family. For my brother and I, both college graduates. During that period of time in the 1960s, gave me a choice of either the military, law enforcement, teaching, or actually the priesthood, but that was negated by my wedding in 1965, but I did have thoughts of priesthood in the early 1960s. I intended, through enrolling in the ROTC program for the first 2 years at Loyola University, to complete that ROTC program, but I quit. The worst decision perhaps I made was quitting the ROTC program during that period of time. Through that experience, I saw that everybody was going into the military at that time. My brother was in the U.S. Navy during the period during Vietnam, and many of my friends were. I again made inquiry of the Marine Corps. And I went through AFI's medical induction down in, on Van Buren Street in Chicago, and was told at that time, you know, I was medically fit, but they were not accepting any more officer candidates for the officer candidate school. So then I started looking at policing, law enforcement. Seeing that I was not living in the city of Chicago at that time, I decided to apply to departments outside the city of Chicago and to other positions in the suburbs of Chicago, even though I was teaching in South Bend, Indiana. I wanted to get home back to Chicago. I applied, I think, or at least made inquiry with the South Bend Police Department. And while I was teaching, I had taken a 8th grade class to Washington, D.C. And somehow during the day, in the afternoon when I was not busy, I visited the FBI office in Washington, D.C., got the tour, came back to South Bend, and inquired of my father-in-law, who was living in South Bend, if he knew anybody in the FBI, and he said he did. And he referred me to the local FBI agent in South Bend, Bob Ratty. And within about 6 or 8 months, I was in the FBI. I always thought it was impossible to get into the FBI. I really did at that time. And I was surprised one day when I was attending Indiana University down in Bloomington during my master's degree program. I get a call one day, and it was the day that the astronaut landed on the moon, a telegram saying, congratulations, you're going to be an FBI agent. Come to Quantico, Virginia in August of 1969, and I just received my master's degree from Indiana University thinking I was going to go teach again for another year. We were very, very much excited. I went to training school. I went to Washington, D.C. With a black suit and a black hat, you know, the old J. Edgar Hoover image, seriously. I always remember those days. Boarding the train from Indiana to the Baltimore and Ohio train, taking us to Washington, D.C. Some of the most interesting cases I've worked on have been in areas outside Chicago. Primarily, I was assigned to Wounded Knee, South Dakota, during an episode in which, in 1972, we had a dispute with the local residents out there. In 1984, I was assigned to the 1984 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles, California. In 1992 or 94, I was here in Chicago assigned to the World Cup soccer matches. Those are 3 occurrences that I really remember that is significant as far as the cases and as far as working as a team with other agents during that period of time. I was a case agent of a significant case for the past 10, 15 years of my life in the Bureau. I can't address that case because it's secret. But it was an interesting case. That's all I can say about that case. I transitioned into teaching because I had been a teacher for 3 years in the school system at Mishawaka, Indiana. I had also taught at the FBI National Academy. I had just earned my doctorate from Northern Illinois University back in 1991. I then volunteered to go back to Quantico, Virginia, to take on the responsibility of being a counselor to 50 National Academy, FBI National Academy police cadets, so to speak, at the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia. So I was doing a little bit of teaching there. During my time in the FBI, I was teaching as a police training instructor, various types of courses, gambling technology, surveillance, and the like, for what we call the Northeast Multi-Regional Training Center. What made me think about returning to teaching after I finished my career with the FBI? I just didn't want to go into security work. I did not want to work as a director of security for a corporation or any of that. I felt the challenge of going back into teaching. I found out that here at Lewis University had an opening. I applied. There were 19 candidates. I was selected as a tenured track assistant professor in the Criminal Social Justice Department here at Lewis University back in 1998. And I've been here for 18 years. I feel that at this time, you know, I can go on for another 2 to 7. It's like, it's not a sentence. Do I feel that my career in teaching and my career in the FBI has impacted many people's lives? I feel so. I feel so honored to be at this institution, just as much as I was honored to be at the FBI during those years. I feel that in some way I've connected with applicants in the FBI, encouraging them to join, going through the competitive process, the testing process, the interviewing process, the background process, and closely monitoring their activities with my professional staff. At the same time, here at Lewis University, I have numerous students that attend career fairs. I was just recently at the International Association of Chiefs of Police convention here in Chicago. Saw many ex-students, former students, who are now in the law enforcement profession. They personally have thanked me and recall, certain types of excursions we've taken. When I first came here, myself and another professor were involved in student trips in the graduate program here at Lewis University. We went to Ireland, Northern Ireland, and another trip we took to Milan in Switzerland. And those specific trips were recalled by both these students as enjoyable and a good learning experience too. So impacting their lives, yes, that has been much my privilege to do over those 2 careers that I've had. The advice that I would give students that are looking for a career in the FBI, DEA, and other federal law enforcement agencies is to stick with it, knowing that you are qualified, that there's an enormous quantity of individuals that are looking for the same career. Develop a kind of other plan too, alternative, because the pathway could take you a process of, let's say, 5 to 8 more years after graduating from Lewis University. You can enter the military, you can enter local law enforcement, you can enter the business world, obtaining some management experience. You can go to law school, you can get a master's degree, all within that time period of, let's say, 3 to 5 years after your degree. Just stick with it, and perhaps you'll be one of the many that are chosen for that path, for that career path. I deal with stressful times in my life by going to Green Bay Packer games, Notre Dame football games, White Sox games, and other sports. I also deal with stress by vacationing with our 5 kids. Last time we were in the North Carolina shores. I visit with one of my children in Washington, D.C., where she and her husband live, and another child where they live in Los Angeles. My wife and I, for our 50th wedding anniversary, we traveled to Europe this past summer. We went to Amsterdam on a river cruise on the Rhine and Main rivers to Vienna. So vacationing is perhaps the way we de-stress ourselves these days. Some of the outside activities and volunteer activities I am involved in are specifically, I am a Notre Dame volunteer usher, so I get to go to all Notre Dame home games. And also, it's a learning experience because part of life, as far as law enforcement is concerned, we have secondary careers. The secondary career could be working in security at Chicago White Sox Stadium or Chicago Bears Stadium. I believe that's good for us to have those type of jobs, to kind of see what that type of work is about. This volunteer experience that I have is, I don't know, preparing me for someday when I'm 80 to be a usher for life, a volunteer. I don't know, but I'm looking at it from that standpoint. And the other job that I have as a volunteer is working at the Downers Grove Police Fire Commission, doing that type of processing of employees into those positions. The other day I got a note in my LinkedIn account, and I use my LinkedIn account for my students here at Lewis University because once they've graduated, they make friends with me through LinkedIn, and then they can connect with my 500, 800 connections in some way in finding some kind of career. I just got word from an individual who is head of the FBI in New York City, thanking me 20 years ago, in 1996, that he applied and got into the FBI because I was the applicant coordinator that processed him. Okay, I was a mechanism to get him in. You know, I did encourage him, I recall him, and I recall him very much. I was kind of like, wow, he can remember me, and he's the big head now of the FBI in New York, you know? That's the kind of, you know, stuff that results from, you know, accomplishing your task. It's just like a student, you know, asking for a recommendation. And I haven't seen the student in 3 years, and I get an email, and they would say, Dr. Killacky, I need your assistance in getting this job. Can I use you as a reference? Can you write a letter for me? You know, I love that. I really do. Those are things that, you know, when you connect public service, what you can do for the people, good job hires. One piece of advice I would give to Lewis University students is to connect. And there's various ways of connecting. Connecting through an internship, connecting through mentoring with other students, connecting through contact with a job that you have in the summer that somehow connects with your career later on. I encourage the jobs, you know, and I realize the issue with jobs today that we have to make some money, but at the same time, when you're working for a certain company and it doesn't relate to your job, it really doesn't give you at least a resume building experience. So through your summer job and through your regular job you might have through school, it should be something similar with perhaps your future law enforcement or corrections career. And also you should have the opportunity before you leave this university to assess whether or not you should take an internship. And that is a recommended path to successful career development. Thank you for joining me on Lewis Spotlight. I hope you have gained some insight from my career and adventure.